So there's a question here about why we are afraid of a disease and how we shouldn't be afraid of a virus, and rather we should be afraid of Allah, and why the houses of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are closed. Uh, the most important principle in Islam with regards to what Islam came with was preservation of life, hifdhun nafs. If you look at the purposes of the Sharia, the most important purpose of the Sharia was to preserve life, more so than preserving religion. How do we know this? Because if you were in the middle of the desert and you had no food or drink, and you came across a dead pig, and if you don't eat that animal, you would die, then is it permissible for you to eat that animal? Yes, it is. So certain things become permissible for you. Certain things become halal. Why? Because preserving your life is obligatory. It's wajib for you now to do whatever you can to save your life, so that you can live to pray another day, so you can continue to worship, so that you can continue to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the future. So that's the priority. If somebody is praying and the whole building is collapsing as a result of, a calamity or an earthquake or whatever the case may be, and there's a risk of you dying, it's an obligation upon you to break your salah and leave. Because if you don't, you'll end up dying and being killed, and you'll never be able to pray again. So the principle from an Islamic perspective is that hifdhun nafs, preservation of life, is more valuable, more important than preservation of deen in these kinds of situations. Likewise, in this case, the idea of fearing Allah and not a virus, fearing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is to prevent causing harm to others. That's from fearing Allah Azza wa Jal. The Messenger of Allah he said, La darra wa la dirar, like we mentioned. No, you should never harm anyone, nor should you reciprocate any harm. This also refers to illnesses which are contagious. If you know you're sick, or there's a chance, like we know with this illness, which I think is around 17%, it has a death rate of around 17%, whereas a normal flu is like 3 or 4%, on average. So obviously this is a lot more dangerous than the regular flu. It's not something which we should be taking lightly. And as Muslims representing Islam and the Muslims, I've also heard that the government has said the people who are most likely at risk are the Muslim communities. So we need to be a bit more attentive and understand that eyes are on us as communities in terms of how we're going to react. A mile away from where I live, an elderly Muslim man passed away. And apparently they had a Jum'ah somewhere that Allahu Alam if he was the one who had prayed in that masjid, but they prayed a Jum'ah prayer in a masjid in that area. And of course, people are going to be infected because sometimes a week or 10 days go by and there's no sign of symptoms. Sometimes 2 weeks can go by and there's no sign of symptoms. So you could unknowingly be passing on contagious diseases without you even knowing. Maybe some people have this disease or this infection, this virus, without them even knowing. It doesn't cause any harm to them because of the strength of their immune system. But others are being affected because you're around them and you're harming those who are elderly, those who are older than you, those who are susceptible. Even if they're not old, maybe they have some kind of illness. Maybe they're asthmatic, maybe they have some kind of other kind of illness. It's not just necessarily about their age. It could be some, underlying health condition that they had even though they're young. Or maybe they still have, even though they're young. Maybe they're in their 20s or 30s.